Marcus Rivera had been cooking for 30 years, but nothing prepared him for the day his life changed forever. He owned a small restaurant called Cosmic Kitchen on the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona. The place wasn't fancy, just good food and honest prices. Marcus loved experimenting with unusual ingredients and creating dishes that surprised people. On a Tuesday morning in March, Marcus was preparing for the lunch rush when he heard strange sounds coming from behind his restaurant. It sounded like chirping, but different from any bird he knew. The sounds were musical, almost like tiny bells ringing in harmony. Curious, he stepped outside through the back door. What he saw made him rub his eyes in disbelief. In the small garden area behind his restaurant, 3 small creatures were playing among the herbs and vegetables. They looked like miniature dragons, but not the scary kind for movies. These were beautiful, with shimmering scales that changed colors in the sunlight. They were about the size of house cats, with delicate wings and long, graceful tails. The creatures noticed Marcus and froze. Their large, intelligent eyes stared at him with what seemed like fear. One of them, with scales that shifted between blue and silver, made a soft, whimpering sound. Marcus's heart melted. These weren't dangerous monsters. They were babies, and they looked hungry and scared. Marcus slowly crouched down and spoke softly. "Hey there, little ones. I'm not going to hurt you." The creatures tilted their heads, clearly understanding his gentle tone, even if they didn't understand his words. He went back inside and returned with some leftover roasted chicken. He placed small pieces on the ground and stepped back. The creatures approached cautiously. When they tasted the food, something amazing happened. Their scales began to glow softly, and they made the most beautiful humming sounds Marcus had ever heard. It was like they were singing with pure joy. From that day forward, the 3 dragon hatchlings became regular visitors to Marcus's restaurant. He learned that they appeared every morning around sunrise and every evening at sunset. They would eat whatever food he left for them, and each time they ate, they would glow and sing those wonderful songs. Marcus named them Luna, Sol, and Star based on their scale colors. Luna had blue-silver scales, Sol had golden-orange scales, and Star had scales that sparkled like diamonds. They seemed to understand their names and would come when called. As weeks passed, Marcus noticed something strange. The food he gave them wasn't just any food. They only glowed and sang when they ate specific dishes. Luna loved seafood prepared with herbs. Sol preferred spicy meat dishes with exotic spices. Star enjoyed sweet fruits mixed with certain nuts and seeds. Marcus became obsessed with finding the perfect combinations. He started researching ancient recipes and experimenting with ingredients he'd never used before. His regular customers began to notice changes in his cooking. The flavors were more intense, more satisfying somehow. People started traveling from other cities just to eat at Cosmic Kitchen. But Marcus kept the dragon hatchling secret. He was afraid that if word got out, scientists or the government would take them away. He built a small shelter in his garden where they could rest during the day. He noticed they were getting bigger and stronger, but they remained gentle and playful. One evening, while preparing their dinner, Marcus discovered something that changed everything. He had been making a complex dish with 17 different spices, following a recipe he'd found in an old cookbook from his grandmother. When the hatchlings ate this particular dish, they didn't just glow and sing. They levitated off the ground. Their eyes became brilliant white, and they sang in perfect 3-part harmony. The song was unlike anything on Earth. It seemed to come from somewhere deep in space, ancient and powerful. As they sang, the plants in Marcus's garden began to grow faster. Wilted flowers straightened up and bloomed. Even the vegetables became larger and more vibrant. Marcus realized he had stumbled upon something incredible. These weren't just alien creatures who liked good food. There was a connection between specific recipes and their extraordinary abilities. But he had no idea what it meant or where these creatures had come from. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat in his kitchen, surrounded by cookbooks and ingredient lists, trying to understand what was happening. The hatchlings had fallen asleep in their shelter, still glowing faintly from their evening meal. As he researched, Marcus found references to similar creatures in very old texts. Stories from different cultures around the world mentioned sky dragons, who came to Earth seeking special foods. These texts describe how the dragons would reward those who fed them properly with great abundance and prosperity. But there was something else in these stories that made Marcus's blood run cold. According to the ancient texts, the sky dragons were not just visitors. They were scouts. They came before something much larger, much more powerful. The stories warned that when the sky dragons found what they were looking for, they would call their families home. Marcus looked out at the sleeping hatchlings and wondered what he had gotten himself into. Were they just innocent babies, or were they part of something bigger? The way they reacted to certain foods suggested they were looking for something specific. But what? The next morning, Marcus made a decision. He would continue feeding them and learning about their needs, but he would also start investigating their true purpose. He had become attached to Luna, Sol, and Star, but he needed to know if they posed any danger to Earth. As he prepared breakfast for his new friends, Marcus noticed something he had missed before. The hatchlings weren't just eating randomly. They seemed to be testing different combinations, as if they were searching for a specific recipe. Each time they found a combination they liked, they would look up at the sky and make soft calling sounds. Marcus realized with growing certainty that the hatchlings were trying to communicate with someone or something far above the Earth. Every perfect meal was like sending a message to the stars. But what were they trying to say? And who was listening? The morning sun cast long shadows across the garden as Marcus watched the three dragon hatchlings wake up and stretch their wings. Another day of cooking and discovery lay ahead, but now Marcus knew he wasn't just feeding hungry creatures. He was part of something much larger and more mysterious than he had ever imagined. The question that haunted him was simple but terrifying. What would happen when the hatchlings finally found exactly what they were looking for? 2 months had passed since Marcus first discovered the dragon hatchlings, and his life had become a delicate balance of running his restaurant and caring for his extraordinary guests. The hatchlings had grown noticeably larger, now about the size of medium dogs, and their abilities had become more pronounced with each passing day. Marcus had developed a routine. Every morning at dawn, he would prepare special meals based on combinations he had learned through careful observation. He kept detailed notes in a leather journal, recording which ingredients produced which reactions. His notebook had become filled with drawings of glowing patterns, musical notations trying to capture their songs, and lists of ingredients that seemed to hold special significance. The hatchlings had begun to trust Marcus completely. They would follow him around the garden, sometimes even venturing into the kitchen when no customers were present. Luna, the blue-silver one, had developed a particular fondness for sitting near Marcus while he cooked, watching his every move with intelligent eyes. Sol, the golden one, would often fly short distances around the garden, testing his growing wings. Star, the diamond-scaled hatchling, had begun showing the strongest reactions to the special foods, glowing brighter and singing longer than the others. But Marcus's peaceful routine was shattered on a Wednesday morning when Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared at his back door. She was a xenobiologist from the nearby university, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an intensity that made Marcus nervous immediately. "Mr. Rivera," she said, holding up a device that beeped steadily, "my equipment has been detecting unusual electromagnetic signatures coming from this location for weeks. I need to know what you're hiding." Marcus tried to play innocent, but Dr. Vasquez was too smart and too determined. She pushed past him into the garden just as the hatchlings were finishing their morning meal. The sight of the three glowing creatures stopped her dead in her tracks. For a long moment, nobody moved. The hatchlings stared at the stranger while Dr. Vasquez stared at them. Finally, she whispered, "My God, they're real." Marcus had no choice but to tell her everything. Dr. Vasquez listened to his story with growing excitement and alarm. When he finished, she looked at him with a mixture of admiration and fear. Mr. Rivera, do you understand what you've been doing? These creatures aren't just aliens. Based on their behavior and your descriptions, they're conducting some kind of biochemical analysis of Earth's resources. Every time you feed them, they're gathering information about our planet's biological and chemical composition. The words hit Marcus like a cold wave. What do you mean? Dr. Vasquez pulled out her tablet and showed him complex charts and graphs. I've been monitoring their electromagnetic emissions. Each time they glow and sing, they're transmitting data. Not just any data, detailed information about Earth's molecular structures, atmospheric composition, and biological diversity. They're creating a comprehensive map of everything our planet has to offer. Marcus felt sick. Are you saying I've been helping them spy on us? Not spy, Dr. Vasquez corrected. Something much more systematic. Based on similar cases reported in classified government files, these creatures are scouts for a much larger civilization. They're looking for planets that can provide specific resources their species needs. As if responding to their conversation, the hatchlings suddenly became agitated. They began flying in circles around the garden, their scales shifting through rapid color changes. Star landed near Marcus and looked up at him with what seemed like sadness in her large eyes. Dr. Vasquez observed their behavior carefully. They understand us. Their intelligence is far beyond what we initially thought. Mr. Rivera, I think they've grown attached to you, just as you've grown attached to them. Over the following days, Dr. Vasquez became a regular visitor to the garden. She set up monitoring equipment and began studying the hatchlings more scientifically. What she discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The creatures weren't just collecting random information. They were specifically searching for a particular molecular combination that existed somewhere on Earth. Each meal Marcus prepared was like a piece of a giant puzzle. When they found ingredients that contained the right elements, they would transmit the information to their home world. It's like they're following a recipe, Dr. Vasquez explained to Marcus one evening as they watched the hatchlings play in the moonlight. A recipe for something their civilization desperately needs. But we don't know what happens when they complete it. Marcus had been experimenting with increasingly complex dishes, driven by his desire to make the hatchlings happy. But now he realized that each success brought Earth closer to some unknown fate. The moral weight of his situation was crushing. The breakthrough came on a Friday night when Marcus was preparing a dish he had never attempted before. Following notes from an ancient cookbook he had found in a dusty antique shop, he combined ingredients from 6 different continents: rare spices from Tibet, exotic fruits from the Amazon, special salts from the Dead Sea, herbs from the Australian outback, mushrooms from European forests, and seaweed from the Pacific Ocean. When the hatchlings tasted this dish, something extraordinary and terrifying happened. All 3 creatures rose into the air, their bodies blazing with light so bright that Marcus and Dr. Vasquez had to shield their eyes. They sang in perfect harmony, but this time their song was different. It wasn't the gentle, joyful melody they usually produced. This was a calling song, powerful and urgent. The song lasted for nearly 10 minutes. When it ended, the hatchlings collapsed to the ground, exhausted but clearly excited. They huddled together, making soft, chittering sounds that seemed like celebration. Dr. Vasquez's equipment went crazy. The electromagnetic readings were off the charts. My God, Marcus! They did it. They found what they were looking for. That night, as Marcus lay awake in bed, he could see strange lights moving across the sky. At first he thought they might be planes or satellites, but they moved in patterns unlike anything human-made. They seemed to be responding to the hatchlings' call. The next morning brought visitors that changed everything. 3 larger dragons appeared in Marcus's garden, each one magnificent and terrifying. They were the size of horses, with scales that seemed to contain entire galaxies. These were clearly the parents of the hatchlings. The reunion was beautiful to watch. The young dragons flew to their parents, singing with pure joy. The adult dragons nuzzled their offspring gently, their own scales glowing with warm light. But when they turned their attention to Marcus and Dr. Vasquez, their expressions became serious. One of the adult dragons, with scales that shifted between deep purple and gold, approached Marcus. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in his mind rather than through his ears. "Human," the voice said, "you have cared for our young ones with kindness and wisdom. For this, you have earned our gratitude and respect. But you have also helped them complete their mission. Do you understand what this means?" Marcus found his voice. "I don't know. I just wanted to help them. They seemed so young and hungry." The dragon's mental voice carried amusement. "Young, yes, but hungry for knowledge, not just food. They have been searching for the key to Earth's biological diversity. Through your cooking, they have mapped every essential element your planet contains." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. "What do you intend to do with this information?" The dragon turned its ancient eyes toward her. "That depends on what we find when our scout fleet arrives. Your planet holds something precious to us, a combination of elements that can heal a plague affecting our homeworld. We mean no harm to your species, but we need what Earth can provide." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Through his simple desire to help 3 hungry creatures, he had become the bridge between 2 civilizations. The fate of both worlds now hung in the balance, and somehow he was at the center of it all. As the adult dragons prepared to leave with their offspring, Star broke away from her parents and ran to Marcus. She rubbed against his leg like a cat, purring softly. When she looked up at him, Marcus saw intelligence, gratitude, and something that looked remarkably like love. The purple gold dragon spoke one final time. "The young one wishes to stay with you until our fleet arrives. She has learned much from your kindness, human chef. Perhaps there is more for both our species to learn from each other." As the other dragons disappeared into the sky with Luna and Sol, Marcus was left with Star, Dr. Vasquez, and the knowledge that in just a few weeks, Earth would have visitors unlike any it had ever seen. The question that haunted him now was whether his cooking had doomed his planet or saved it. 3 weeks after the adult dragon's visit, the world had changed in ways that Marcus could never have imagined. The arrival of the dragon fleet had been announced by every major news network, but the reality was far different from the panic and chaos everyone had expected. Instead of massive warships or threatening invaders, graceful vessels that looked like floating crystals had positioned themselves in Earth's upper atmosphere. They were beautiful, translucent structures that caught and reflected sunlight in breathtaking patterns. Rather than blocking out the sun or creating fear, they had become a source of wonder that drew millions of people outside just to gaze up at them. Marcus had become an unwilling celebrity overnight. When the dragons revealed that first contact had been made through a chef in Phoenix, Arizona, reporters from around the world descended on Cosmic Kitchen. The small restaurant that had once served maybe 50 customers a day was now surrounded by news vans, government officials, and curious visitors from every corner of the globe. But Marcus only cared about one thing, Star. The young dragon had remained with him as promised, and their bond had grown stronger each day. She had become his translator, helping him communicate with the dragon elders who visited regularly to coordinate what they called the harvest. Dr. Vasquez had become the official human liaison, working with world governments to understand and manage the situation. Her equipment now filled most of Marcus's back garden, monitoring every interaction between humans and dragons. What she had discovered was both reassuring and sobering. The dragon's homeworld, called Zephyria, was indeed dying from a plague that had lasted for centuries. It was a biological disease that attacked their cellular structure, slowly weakening their entire civilization. The cure required a specific combination of organic compounds that were rare throughout the galaxy, but abundant on Earth. The good news, Dr. Vasquez explained to Marcus during one of their evening conversations, is that they don't need to strip mine our planet or destroy our ecosystem. The compounds they need can be cultivated and harvested sustainably. The bad news is that it will require a complete transformation of how humans think about agriculture and food production. Star, now nearly the size of a small horse and far more articulate in her mental communications, had become Marcus's partner in developing what they called harmony cuisine. This was food that not only satisfied both human and dragon nutritional needs, but also optimized the production of the healing compounds the dragons required. The breakthrough had come when Marcus realized that the joy the hatchlings experienced when eating wasn't just happiness. It was a biological response indicating that the food contained the precise molecular combinations their species needed. Joy for the dragons was literally a sign of health and healing. Working together, Marcus and Star had developed recipes that could be prepared in massive quantities using Earth's existing agricultural infrastructure. These weren't just random combinations of ingredients, but carefully crafted formulations that maximized both flavor and healing potential. The first test of large-scale production took place at a facility in Iowa, where thousands of acres had been converted to grow the specific crops needed for harmony cuisine. Marcus supervised the preparation of the first harvest meal, a complex dish that combined elements from every continent on Earth. When the dragon volunteers tasted it, the result was spectacular. Hundreds of dragons rose into the air simultaneously, their bodies blazing with healing light. Their song of joy was so powerful that it could be heard for miles, a symphony that seemed to heal not just their bodies, but the very air around them. But the most remarkable discovery came when humans began eating harmony cuisine as well. The food didn't just taste incredible. It had unexpected health benefits for humans too. People reported increased energy, better immunity, and a general sense of well-being that doctors couldn't fully explain. Dr. Vasquez theorized that the dragon's requirements had led them to identify combinations of nutrients that were optimal for complex biological systems in general, not just for their species. It's as if they've unlocked the secret to perfect nutrition, she told Marcus. Your cooking hasn't just saved their world. It might revolutionize health and wellness on Earth. As months passed, the relationship between humans and dragons evolved into something unprecedented. The dragons shared their advanced knowledge of agriculture, biology, and sustainable living. In return, humans provided not just the healing compounds they needed, but something equally valuable: creativity and innovation in food preparation. Marcus found himself at the center of a culinary revolution. Restaurants around the world began serving harmony cuisine, and the demand was so high that new farms and processing facilities were being built on every continent. The dragon ships served as floating research stations where human chefs worked alongside dragon biochemists to develop new recipes and refine existing ones. Star had grown into a magnificent adult dragon, her diamond-like scales now large enough to reflect entire landscapes. But she chose to remain with Marcus, serving as the primary ambassador between their species. Together, they traveled the world, teaching others how to prepare harmony cuisine and ensuring that the healing compounds were produced ethically and sustainably. The transformation went far beyond food. The dragon's technology, combined with human ingenuity, led to breakthroughs in medicine, energy production, and environmental restoration. The atmospheric processors on the dragon ships began cleaning Earth's air and water as a gesture of gratitude for humanity's cooperation. But perhaps the most profound change was cultural. The presence of the dragons had united humanity in a way that nothing else ever had. Faced with proof that they were not alone in the universe, humans began to see their planet and each other differently. Wars didn't end overnight, but they became harder to justify when everyone could look up and see the dragon ships as a reminder that Earth was part of a larger community. Marcus often found himself reflecting on how it all began. 3 hungry hatchlings in his garden had led to the most significant event in human history. He had thought he was just feeding scared, lost creatures. In reality, he had been preparing the first course in a banquet that would change 2 worlds forever. On a quiet evening exactly 1 year after he first discovered the hatchlings, Marcus sat in his garden with Star, preparing a simple meal of the original recipe that had started everything. As they shared the food together, Marcus felt the same sense of wonder he had experienced that first morning. Star's voice echoed gently in his mind. "Do you regret any of it, Marcus? The loss of your quiet life, the weight of responsibility, the changes?" Marcus considered the question as he watched the dragon ships moving gracefully across the sunset sky. His small restaurant had become a pilgrimage site for food lovers and scientists alike. His simple life had become incredibly complex. But when he looked at Star, at the thriving gardens around them, at the healthy glow in the faces of everyone who ate Harmony cuisine, he knew his answer. "No regrets," he said aloud, scratching Star gently behind her massive head. Sometimes the most important discoveries happen when you're just trying to help someone who's hungry. Star's scales shimmered with what Marcus had learned to recognize as dragon laughter. Above them, the ships continued their graceful dance, and in gardens around the world, other chefs were preparing meals that would nourish both body and soul, carrying on the tradition that had begun with a simple act of kindness toward 3 lost hatchlings. The secret behind the alien dragon hatchlings' joy had been simpler and more profound than anyone could have imagined. They've been searching not just for physical nourishment, but for the love and care that comes with a meal prepared by someone who truly cares about the one being fed. In feeding them with kindness, Marcus had taught them that true healing comes not just from the right combination of nutrients, but from a love that transforms simple ingredients into something magical. And in teaching them that lesson, he had helped heal not just one world, but 2.